So Ravens flock, Marlon Humphrey just sent a very strong message to the NFL and all Ravens fans that he also made it abundantly clear what his expectations are for the Ravens defense going into 2025. But before I get into that, I want to talk about CJ Mosely. It was just announced earlier today that veteran linebacker CJ Mosely, he just announced his retirement after 11 seasons in the NFL. I'm gonna miss CJ, of course. I'm sure many of you are. He spent the past several years playing with the New York Jets, but as Ravens fans, we know him for playing with the Ravens for the first several years of his career. He was a very solid player. I'm sure everybody can remember the Browns game where he helped secure the AFC North title for us. It didn't work out, unfortunately. The Ravens didn't want to pay him, so he had to go elsewhere to get paid. And in my opinion, I believe that was the first major mistake that Eric DeCosta made as GM, was letting CJ walk. Because when you look at the moves that Eric made after that, it felt like there was constantly this void that he was trying to fill left by CJ, drafting Patrick Queen. Now, unfortunately, Patrick Queen, it took a couple years for him to really come into his own. He started off kind of rocky, so Ravens fans were not really that patient because Ravens fans are used to seeing a guy like Ray Lewis for so many years. And then because the Ravens themselves were starting to not be interested in Patrick Queen long term, they went out, traded for Roquan, gave Roquan this massive contract. And then from there, they also drafted Trent Simpson. And it's clear that many of these moves, in my opinion, are just a blatant ripple effect of them making the mistake of not re-signing or not retaining CJ Mosely. And that being said, I think we should have. I think that's obvious to say we should have, because when you look at CJ during his time with the Jets, he still played at a high level. Like CJ Mosely and Quincy Williams are, well, they're no longer together, obviously, because CJ just retired. But when they were playing the past several years, they were one of the most underrated linebacker duos in the NFL. Like the year that Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen made the Pro Bowl at the same time, I think that was 2023. You could have made the same argument that either CJ or Quincy Williams should have made the Pro Bowl that year as well. So it's not like CJ was falling off or anything like that. So again, the Ravens should have retained CJ. He still would have been very solid for us in the next several years, as we could have seen. There's speculation and rumors that the Ravens and CJ were trying to discuss a reunion this offseason. But unfortunately, CJ, he's dealing with issues regarding a neck injury where he's not going to be able to get cleared. And so he's choosing to hang it up and call it a career, which I could respect that, right? Once you start getting this many serious injuries, you really don't want to test that too many times. So at this point, he's done almost all, not everything, but as close to as many things as you could want him to do. So I'm happy for him, even though he didn't finish his career with us. As far as our linebacker position is concerned, I know a lot of people have lost faith in Trent Simpson. I don't want to say I've necessarily lost faith. I still think he has the potential, obviously, because he has the physical traits that you would want. Like he's an explosive guy, like he's strong, but he hasn't really put it all together. But then we also drafted Teddy Buchanan. So I'm interested to see how Teddy Buchanan looks out there. And even if neither one of them work out, or if neither one of them are ready this year, the Ravens have shown that they can go bring in a veteran linebacker to kind of to pick up the pieces and come in at a low price. And that's all you can really ask for. Like, we can't expect for them to go find another star linebacker, because they've already made it a point to give Roquan Smith an insane amount of money. Like, I've said this several times, like, even though I don't have a personal issue with Roquan at all, I just think that they overpaid him. Like, it is what it is. But if they're giving him that dollar amount, and if many Ravens fans view him as highly or view him as elite, which many Ravens fans do, hey man, even if you have a subpar linebackers playing next to you, you're gonna have to just overcome that. And it sucks to say, because it's a team sport, and it's frustrating if, like, you're doing what you got to do, but something else is kind of dragging you down, which many people made the argument that was what was happening with Roquan in 2024. But At the end of the day, you got to make it work anyway. Like when we look at the offensive line, we see literally our two guards are struggling. We have very bad guards, left and right guards. And yet we're still asking for Ronnie Stanley to be Ronnie Stanley and play at a high level as a left tackle, even though there's somebody right next to him who's a liability. Same thing with Tyler Linderbaum. We're still expecting him to be a center who could play at a high level, even though there's two guards on both sides of him who are liabilities. We're expecting Roger Rosengarten next year in his second year to continue to take a step forward, even though there's a guard next to him who's a liability. So at the end of the day, even if there's a question as far as what we're gonna do with our second linebacker, you whether it's a rookie in Buchanan or whether it's some random veteran on the street you could get for cheap, you gotta expect Roquan to overcome that and still play at a high level. Hopefully, he doesn't have a slow start like he did the majority of the 2024 season. But as far as Marlon Humphrey, Marlon said that he wants this team's identity to go back to defense, which I get what he's saying. He's not trying to disrespect Lamar. He's just saying that, hey, Lamar, even though everybody loves Lamar, this team, their original identity, at least when Marlon got drafted, was already established as a defensive identity, and he wants to go back to that. And technically, that's not going to happen, to be honest with you, because for the first time in our franchise's history, we have a superstar quarterback. So like no matter how good your defense is, it's not gonna matter. Like our identity is Lamar Jackson until he retires or until him and the Ravens have some unfortunate fallout like the Colts did with Peyton Manning. Until something like that happens, our identity is gonna be the star quarterback. However, I get the point Marlon is making. He wants to get back to the point where this defense is truly feared and consistently elite. Not just elite for one season or not just elite for a few games towards the end of the season, but consistently elite when it matters. And he also talked about how they got to create more turnovers in the playoffs. See, many people, this is why people like you and my voice and all these people, all of us, when we're not complaining, but when we're voicing our frustrations about the defense's inability to create turnovers in the playoffs, we have to keep applying that pressure because somebody's listening. I don't know who, but I mean, somebody is listening. Somebody's got to be listening because before this offseason, nobody really was putting that much pressure on the Ravens defense when it comes to the playoffs. But now it's become a major talking point because now even many Ravens fans who love the defense are starting to recognize the pattern and say, hey, wait a minute. You look at all these other teams in the playoffs, they're making mistakes too. But when they make mistakes, their defense actually can make up for it. We literally watched in the Super Bowl, Jalen Hurts throws a bad pick. Nobody even cares because on the very next play, Cooper DeJean gets a pick six on Patrick Mahomes. Like even the 2 weeks before that game, when the Rams and the Eagles were playing in the divisional round of the playoffs, Jalen Hurts gives up of safety, which, yeah, technically a safety is not a turnover, but let's be real. It's a turnover, basically. You're literally giving them points and then giving them the ball back. It's a turnover. So Jalen Hurts gives up a safety. As soon as the Rams get back on the field on offense, what happens? Jalen Carter forces a fumble. Just that quick. And again, that's not to say that the Ravens have to hold teams to zero, but you gotta go a step further than what we've been getting the past 7 years. And Marlon Humphrey clearly recognizes that. He also mentions how he's been watching clips of the 2000 Ravens defense and what they were doing. And he was literally pointing out the fact that you didn't even need an offense like that. You didn't. I mean, even in the Super Bowl, when you rewatch the Super Bowl from the 2000 season, outside, if I'm not mistaken, the only touchdown the Giants scored was like a special teams touchdown or something like that. Like the Ravens defense were this close to pitching a shutout in the Super Bowl. And I've said many times, Ravens fans have to let that go, like that idea that we're going to bring back the 2000s, because again, number one, it's a different day and age. they throw flags out way more now than they did back then. If you make eye contact with Patrick Mahomes for more than 3 seconds, that's like a 30-yard penalty. Eh, So on that alone is not going to allow you to have a 2000s defense. But also, we got to remember in the 2000s, we were in a rare space where we were lucky enough to have several icons on the defensive side of the ball. Literally, like we had dudes who were the best at their position ever. Like, and that's not something you can recreate on a consistent basis. But I'm still happy that guys like Marlon are recognizing that you do have to play a little better. Like, even though they're not necessarily playing terrible, they're not playing lights out, which is something you expect because they make a lot of money. These players on defense, they're making a lot of money. We're using high draft picks on them. Like, we're supposed to be a team with a defensive identity. It's not crazy for us to say, hey, look at what these other teams can do when it comes to turnovers. We need to do the same thing. But let me know, do you agree with Marlon Humphrey's point? And also, are you going to miss CJ Mosely?